Hello there, it's Susie Walker here from Psychologies magazine. I am delighted to be joined by Divine Charura, the Professor of Counselling Psychology at York St John's University today. Hello, Divine, how are you?
Oh, hi, Susie. Really well, thank you. Good afternoon to you and to all the viewers.
Yeah, I'm really excited today because we're going to be talking about love, my favorite subject. We're going to be talking about how building a relationship, a loving relationship with ourselves, can really help with mental health. It's Mental Health Week this week. Divine has written a book called Love and Therapy in Relationships, so you're pretty much an expert in this. But the first thing I suppose I want to ask you, Divine, is, you know, what is the link between a good loving foundation, a loving relationship with ourselves, and good mental health? Why are they linked?
Yes, that's a really good question, Susie. So what we know is for thousands of years, poets, playwrights, filmmakers, elders of different faiths, people in different cultures have been interested in this very question. But what we do know from developmental psychology is that our upbringing has really important foundations that are laid as we grow. So here is an example. If we have good attachments with our primary caregivers, if we have good loving relationships that encourage us, if we have relationships with those around us as we grow that instill in us self-belief, self-worth, motivation, love of self, then psychologically we're stronger. And when we meet adversity or difficulties or trauma, we're likely to manage through that. The
Yeah.
next thing that happens is it also enables us to have what we call internal working model, which is the model on how we manage relationships ourselves in life. Firstly, relationship with ourselves, relationship with our own psychological well-being,
Yeah.
and then relationships with others. So, and then you can then go out into the community and think about relationships in school, in university, in work, within the community, and so on. So it is really at the heart of psychological well-being.
Sure. Which is, if you've had a really kind of great upbringing and you have a healthy relationship with your mother and father, and I know that's called secure attachment,
Mhm.
that's great. But what about the rest of us? What about the rest
Well,
of us who perhaps haven't had
well,
perhaps a kind of slightly faulty relationship? Can we change it now as adults?
Well, it's a great question. So let's take a step back. I'm very hesitant, and in fact, I don't believe that we are divided into those that have had secure attachment and those that haven't, because of
Okay.
course, what we know is life and psychological well-being is not like that. We know that 1 in 3, 1 in 4 of all of us as human beings will face adversity and psychological distress. So even when you've had great upbringing, great relationships, the human condition is that we all have mental health and we're all susceptible to mental ill health at different points in our lives. So that's the first thing to
Yeah.
say. Having said that, there are degrees of variance on how we respond to the life condition, to trauma, to challenges, to difficulties. So the way that you can describe it, if I was to use a metaphor, is there's somebody who shared a metaphor with me of someone who was carrying two buckets. One had holes in it, and they'll go to the well and they'd walk. And somebody said, "Look, why are you carrying this other bucket?" And the narrative was that, look, even if you look at my journey, you can see all the flowers that are growing on this path.
Ah,
And for me, there's something that is so beautiful about us having a view of mental health, mental ill health, as part of a spectrum on which we all are. So, can we change? Which was the question. One of the great things about me being a practitioner psychologist and a psychotherapist is uh, absolutely is a
the right
real
answer. Yeah.
is a real belief in the power of love, the power of therapy, the power of whatever path we take to help our transformation. And if we have the right conditions, then neurologically, spiritually, we know that as people emotionally, we then transform.
Okay, so tell us. So let's say we wanted to transform the relationship that we have with ourselves. Low self-esteem, low, not valuing ourselves, so that we end up in toxic relationships. How do
Uh-huh.
how do we start building that kind of self-esteem, that self-value, that love for ourselves? Where do we start? If you've just kind of recognized, okay,
Uh-huh.
I think this is going on. Where do we start apart from getting a therapist?
Of course. So we have a saying that we use, that I use as a therapist, which is that the aim of therapy is to introduce the patient or the client uh, to the person that they have the most dealings with, namely the person of themselves. So it's to really start
Yeah.
by learning yourself, by having self-compassion and and understanding that you're not defined by what you have been told, that everything that you think doesn't necessarily make it true,
Yes.
that if you face difficulty, if you face toxic relationships, it doesn't mean that change can't happen or transformation can't happen. In the Eastern philosophy, they have a great saying that when we see that the sky is overcast and we can see the clouds, it doesn't mean the sun is not shining.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the place to start is to have self-compassion, is to be patient but persistent in a positive approach to change. Usually, I talk to a lot of people that consult with me about having a gratitude diary, a love diary, having a diary in which you can also note the difficult areas for you, the difficult challenges, because if you don't know what they are,
Yeah.
how could you get the help that you need? So that's a place to start.
So it's
The
about
other,
self-awareness of maybe the struggles that you're having, and then
uh-huh.
gratitude. And when you say love diary, are you saying the things that you love about yourself, the things you love about life?
Well, both. So I talk about just being grateful. For example, for the small things. Waking up each morning and thinking there is opportunity for me. I can change. I can, and where I struggle, I can get help, and to follow through getting help. But the other bit that's really important is to, in therapy, we talk about compulsions to repeat. That all of us have things that we have repeated in our lives. That might be about engaging in toxic relationships. That might be about not always following through on what we said. That might be about an internal critical voice to bring ourselves down, and to which contributes to the low self-worth and the low self-esteem.
Yeah.
Um,
You're right. That kind of, so we talk about toxic relationships, but I think
uh-huh.
for many of us, that toxic relationship begins with that critical voice inside, which
Yes.
constantly undermine. I was just talking to my friend about it last night. We're just saying,
Hmm.
well, what is that voice? It's so dark. We're grown-ups now, and we still have that
Uh-huh.
voice, in our minds. And even despite knowing all that we know, it's still there. So my
Hmm.
experience of it doesn't go away, but you can just turn the volume down on it, and you turn the volume up on the other one, the more compassionate kind of.
Right.
Mine always just has a sense of humor. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, whatever, Suze. Yeah, come on. Let's. That's not going to help you there. Let's.
Uh-huh.
Let's celebrate your imperfections, sort of thing.
Yes. What there is, Susan, I think you're right. So if we think about this internal voice that is negative, that is pushing ourselves down, that is critical, if we can think that it came from somewhere, these internal messages or scripts, or belief systems or core beliefs that we have, go back a long way and have developed over how many ever years that we are, in the age that we are today. Then we have to believe that the opposite is also true. That if we start to input a positive voice, a positive outlook, to surround ourselves with people who are complimentary, who encourage us, who show us love. And when we think about the different kinds of love, there's many kinds of love that we can surround ourselves with. So many years ago, I started seeing people who came for consultation because of low self-esteem or relationship problems. And one of the things that we quickly did was when I said to them, I'd like you to imagine in the room uh, 4 or 5 chairs in which people who really don't like you are sitting. What would they say? And they had so much to say. And then we did the opposite of that, which is now if you were to surround yourself with really good friends and people that love and care about you, or people who don't know you, so don't start from a place of judging you, what would they say? And those are
Brilliant.
the positive voices and messages. And at the heart of that is also forgiving ourselves and living in the moment.
I mean, I think that is an absolute brilliant exercise, and I think people will. I think I would struggle with that exercise of sitting there. The critical voices, yep, I could,
Yeah.
let them, but the positive voice, it would be difficult.
Uh-huh.
However, it's almost what's the word? Getting into your comfort zone with it. Is trying
Uh-huh.
to lean into that. Okay, yes,
Yeah.
I know you find this really hard, but
Yeah.
try anyway. Let's just try some positive things to hear
Yes.
them. Say a bit more about being in the present. You just said there. What do you mean?
Yes. So uh, if we think about negative image of one's self,
Yes.
a lot of that goes into the cognitions or the thoughts or the thought patterns about what we did in the past,
Yes.
relationships from the past, upbringing from the past, scenarios and circumstances from the past. And what we miss is this person that is here today, this person that is listening to this channel right now, or that will listen to the recording of it. And how can they embrace the moment? How can they embrace themselves and the things that make them different? So how can they be grateful and have gratitude and love for themselves in the present moment and appreciate what is happening uh, in their life right now? That there's always things that we can think about, and to really force ourselves to think, yes, I can think of loads of negative things and circumstances, and at times the human condition is that we face grief, we face loss, we face things that are difficult. But if we come back to moment by moment and to be absolutely in the moment, then that's powerful.
And I think to do that, it's almost like there's when you're unconscious and you just go about your habitual way. So
Yeah.
it feels like you're consciously choosing, aren't you? It
Uh-huh.
sometimes for me when I'm just going through my usual, I have to say, hang on. That's why mindfulness helps me a lot. So
Yes.
starting to be aware of the thoughts that I'm having.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's the first step, is I am not my thoughts, stepping away from
Yeah.
them,
Right.
noticing this dialogue, this diatribe of blah,
Uh-huh.
blah, blah, and then stepping back, and then consciously choosing. I could listen to all that negative rubbish,
Uh-huh.
or I could just, I mean, I feel uncomfortable, I must say, uncomfortable saying, kind of praising myself and doing that. But I could
Hmm.
start with, you know what, you do a professional job.
Yeah.
There's some
Yeah.
things I can say that are positive about myself
Uh-huh.
that I think are true, and it's starting
Yes.
there. I find the kind of, when you're doing mantras in the mirror,
Uh-huh.
like, you are
Yes.
beautiful. I'm like, well, I'm
Yes.
not. It kind of makes it worse. Do you know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
So, but I could say, oh, your glasses look nice, or
Yeah.
whatever. You know what I mean, it's like, have you got any advice to us about, in terms of those voices, or making it
Yeah.
easier for us to receive that?
Yeah. So the first thing that I want to say in relation to that, Susie, is it's a journey. And when you start it, don't give up.
Yeah,
So anyone who's done meditation,
yeah,
anyone who's practiced any sort of martial art or yoga or any relationship, it's not always perfect. So the moment you think about, I'm going to be positive, and then you're struggling, you're flooded with negative thoughts. Number one, be patient with yourself. Number two, be kind and be forgiven of the moments when you think, I didn't do it right. I knew I should have done this. I should have been more self loving and more self caring, but I've done it again. Be kind and be supportive to yourself through the hard times. Number three, write things down or speak things down. We have mobile phones, you can
yeah.
dictate things that you come back to, or you write things. Number four, I speak about in the love book that I edited with Stephen Paul and many other colleagues, psychologists and psychotherapists who contributed, consistently we're speaking about this constant journey in which we stepping into that space. And we love loving oneself and giving oneself love is not the same as narcissism, which is another kind of, narcissismos, those that speak Greek, would talk about the narcissism, which is the kind of love that brings everyone else down. But that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is recognizing the self-worth, the beautiful being that we can be, the beautiful potential that we have, and the things that we need to do to nurture that. As a plant, just behind me, you can see I have a bonsai tree, and I have to water it. I have to provide to make sure it has light. I have to offer it fertilizer, all these things. And if I do that, within it, it has the potential to grow.
Yeah.
So it's the same approach and attitude to helping ourselves. And the last thing I'll say to that is, you said something earlier, which is, I am not my thoughts. So don't believe everything you think. The fact that you think, you're a horrible person doesn't necessarily mean that, or the fact that you think, I can't get through this relationship or this difficult time or the nature of trauma that I faced doesn't always necessarily make it true. And that's where help comes in, which is sometimes we can't always do it on our own. We need help. We need others. We're social, communal, loving beings.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think it's to start with, when we talk about that a lot in psychologies. It's start with the self-help stuff. Try, and if it really won't shift, and you really reach out for help. And people can't. There's a lot of therapy that's available on the NHS. But also there are private therapists to kind of reach out to as well. But or there are like programs that you can join. All of these things, but you don't have to suffer. You don't there is help available. You don't have to have low self-esteem for the rest of your life. You don't have to be in a toxic relationship. You can create new relationships, and there is a way forward for everybody. You're different, everyone. So I'm so passionate about that, and I think that we need to sort of spread, in terms of Mental Health Week, let's spread that message to say, everyone, there is hope, and you can change this. Seek help, or start with some of the exercises that you've just given us. They're brilliant, really, really brilliant.
There is hope, and at York St. John, we have real values in working with the community, in supporting. We have a local mental health hospital. We have people from the community in the trainees that we work with, in counseling, psychology, and so on. At the heart of these thousands of mental health professionals, United Kingdom Council for Psychotherapy, psychotherapists who can help, and they're trained to be non-judgmental, to help you to work through whatever difficulties you might be facing, and the community hubs that people can access, and so on. So I'm just endorsing your message around kind of what we can do to help each other, but also to have love and self-worth and self-esteem, that not to give up hope.
Yeah, I mean, your book is called Love and Therapy in Relationship. And I think, I've had therapy on and off for a long time. And for me, I think that what happens is, it's when you're in relationship with a therapist, it's sort of it's teaching you that you can be listened to, that you can have somebody compassionately in your space. And if you hadn't had that when you were growing up, or whatever the thing is, that you learn to start to build a new relationship with yourself, and that that's nurturing, and that it's loving, if you can't do it by yourself. So what you're suggesting at the beginning was, we can start building these muscles of self-love ourselves. Right. But sometimes at the beginning, if you're struggling, it does help to have another ear, be it a friend, or professional help.
Yes, and many people, friends, professional help, faith groups, community hubs, social groups, really important. And at the heart of it, I think, whilst we're talking about love and therapy, we must mention ethics, and that a good psychologist, a good therapist who's registered with a professional body has absolute commitment to doing no harm, and to doing good, and to support you through that journey of transformation that you'll be embarking on, and to listen to you. And like you said, Susie, it is like a mirror, because they're not invested in bringing you down, or abusing you, or or taken advantage, but really at the heart, they want to listen, to support, to work through the skills that they've had and through the many years of training that they've had. So I think that's important to say. And that therapy is for us all to engage with, or whichever path we take, but that we reach that point of transformation.
And I suppose you build trust again. I mean, that's the
Yes.
thing for many people. It's building that trust that there's another human being that's got
Uh-huh.
that can champion them, that they can
Yes.
listen. It's kind of that loving space for them. So
Yes.
and again, it's very healing. So it's
Yeah.
wonderful. Divine, this is lovely. I could speak to you all day.
Thank
It's
you.
really lovely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for your wisdom. I'm taking away. I think I'm going to start a love diary. I've got a gratitude diary, but I haven't started a love diary, and maybe I can start exploring that kind of loving relationship with myself again.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us for Mental
You're
Health.
welcome. You're welcome. And Susie, what I would say, celebrate your wins, no matter how big or small they are, each day. That's part of the love that, I've done that well today. No matter how small it is, no matter how big it is, that's important.
Yeah.
And carry that message of hope and of love. And that we so need it today. We're talking about mental health week, but we're facing COVID-19 and a lot of the trauma, the loss, the bereavement, the angst, the fear. More than ever, we need love, to help our communities, those around us, and to help ourselves first and foremost.
Yeah, it's so true. Right. Well, with that message, I'm going to leave you to go and spread love into the world.
Thank you very much.
Lots of love,
I think we all need to do lots of love to all. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Bye-bye. Bye now. Bye.
Bye. Okay, I think we're off. Hang on 1 second. I'll just wait till the